I believe anything yet because
Sure.
I don't but I used to make fun of these people for
You're
a long
allowed to
time.
have an opinion, Jack.
I
You're
know,
allowed to have an
but
opinion.
it's not that I have an opinion. I have questions about the shape of the earth.
No, you don't, dude.
And when they said, "Hey, that's not funny," it's like, "Oh, why can't we joke about that? Like everything should be a joking matter."
Everything.
Okay, so everything.
Life
right?
is funny, and you know a little bit about my story.
Sure.
Go ahead and do your thing first.
Yeah. So we're live now. This is Six Sense Podcast. I'm your host, Darren. Today, I felt like since it was super slow news day in the last couple of days, with Ukraine and us giving them another $60 billion, I figured instead of posting every Wednesday, this would kind of be a special episode. And I was able to nab a really good friend of mine, and I'll let him introduce himself. Jack, welcome. I hope we can have a decent conversation and maybe introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, man. So I'm Jack Dugan. I don't know. I have been pretty in tune with politics for a long time. I've been very interested in it. I have, in the past couple of years, ceased to get in arguments online about such things because it's a waste of time, and I've been trying to do some personal growth. I just picked up 5 years sober on December 2nd, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome, dude.
And I've been getting back into my faith as a Catholic, and that's kind of helped me put a break on the arguments. But I still am very
tough.
interested. It's very tough because and I could be wrong about everything. It doesn't feel like it, but I could be.
Right.
It is possible. It is absolutely possible that I am wrong, but I don't try to just jump at the news and say, "Oh, this is happening, this is real." But I have to research everything myself. And there are some things that I don't even deem worth researching. Like, it's interesting you brought this Ukraine thing up because I was balls deep in it for a long time.
Yeah.
But then the past year or so, I'm like, I just don't care anymore because it's just every day more nonsense. But another thing is to keep in mind, it's kind of off topic.
No, go ahead.
Try to keep me accountable because Lent started yesterday in the Catholic faith, and I gave up. One of the things that I'm trying to improve about myself is swearing.
Okay.
And I use some swear word, as you know, in every sentence.
It's very hard. Well, they're very useful words.
Listen, the English language is a beautiful language. Might as well use all of it, right?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. I've been looking a little bit at some of the news, and I mean,
listen, I got hooked on this new news app called Ground News. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Oh, dude, check it out. So, we were kind of just talking behind. We haven't seen each other since Scott's wedding, and a lot has changed. And needless to say, I'm like wildly proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That being said, we're more like in my first episode, I kind of said I was a centrist and like libertarian-esque, if you will. And so Ground News is just very interesting because you can go on there. It tailor makes your news, and it tells you who's reporting it, left, right, or center.
Right.
And so you can find...
Before you got on here, I was looking through. I try to use DuckDuckGo as much as possible.
It's so difficult to figure it out.
Even on there, the first 200 articles, approximately, I'm exaggerating a little bit,
move my camera
are all CNN, CBS, New York Times. They don't even put Fox up there, which I lump in with all the rest of them. It's just it's the same garbage.
Right, right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Ground News is you could even find, like, if you type in, like, for example, this episode being about Ukraine, you could type in Ukraine and it'll bring up Portuguese newspapers that are reporting on Ukraine. So you get there's a little subscription fee. I think it's like $3 a month. But if you're into the news and you're looking for a good way to, and I am not sponsored by them at all. Disclaimer. Yeah. But if you're looking to find like good news sources that aren't things that nobody trusts anymore, like mainstream media in the US, they're a great way to do it. but that's usually where I do get my information. And I just figured, not yesterday, but the day before, when that aid package got approved, and my head went through my rear end. I was like, well, I feel like I've got to say something or at least do an article or, a podcast just specifically on Ukraine. Cause I had a lot of people reach out to me after our first episode and ask like, hey, what are your feelings on Ukraine? I'm like, dude, I have 1,000 feelings.
That's great.
Yeah, dude. Like people that I didn't really know listened or cared. And I think a lot of people do care. They just don't know where to start. And I listen to podcasts like Liberty Lockdown and, part of the problem is really where it got me started on this whole. Dave Smith does some really great deep dives. He got me into focusing on the Libertarian Institute and seeing like Scott Horton. If you ever get a chance, anything Scott Horton says, he's really super not biased in my opinion. He's just straight facts, and it's hard to. Anyway, he's very long-winded, so if you do have time.
That's okay.
You do have time.
I don't mind that.
Right.
There's usually a lot of good content in long-winded stuff.
Yes. Well, that's what Dave Smith always says. He's like, listen, I'm very long-winded. It's like, but the thing is, the reason I tune into his podcast a lot is because I always get something out of it. I learn something new instead of just hearing the same old people just kind of drone on and on.
And I'm wondering, you mentioned the people that were interested about your opinions on Ukraine and whatnot. A part of me is like, and it might be a good thing. I mean, obviously the state of the world is not good.
No.
Overall, no matter which side of the aisle, or even if you're not even in an aisle you're sitting in, it's horrible. But a lot of people are starting to come up, and some people are still afraid to speak their mind because their opinions might not be acceptable to the masses, right?
Right.
So I'm glad you asked me, because I'm one of those people who could not care less.
And you know what? I think that's exactly why I asked you. And then Scott was kind of Scott's like you. He's I would say like a little softer about it. I would say like that's no slight to you at all. But you guys would definitely get along. But that's what he was saying. He's like, I get called a bigot and a racist online all the time, and
oh my God.
He's got to really break it down and ask them. That's what he said on our episode, was that he asked them like, okay, what does that mean to you? So then he attacks that, because there's no way to talk your point if they're just going to call you. Just everything is dismissive by those things,
right? Because they don't even know what they're saying, these people. But anyway, my basic, like, if I had to sum up my opinion on the Ukraine-Russia issue, it's kind of like a blanket idea that could be applied to the Israel issue we're having right now, and all these other conflicts. All right, I'm going to try not to swear here.
You got it.
We need to mind our own business.
Yeah.
There are so many people in this country. We have enough issues as it is. There are so many people, homeless veterans. The VA is in shambles. Why can't we take care of our own for a while? And Jordan Peterson, who I love, he says it perfectly, and he wrote a whole book on it, is how can you help anyone else if your house is out of order? You have to get your own affairs in order before you can help anyone else. And I understand that years ago, I guess it was Teddy Roosevelt who kind of officially made us the world police at the time, but and there was it served a purpose, I guess. I would like to look more into it, because I haven't, but I'm sure there's probably nefarious and ulterior motives behind that too.
Absolutely. There's always, that's a thing too, is when you see something on the news, it's like, there's got to be something there. It's never just as it is.
Right. And it's like, can we please take care and love him or hate him? I voted for the guy, Donald Trump, but I understand why people don't like him. I understand why people do like him. But one of the things I do like about him, because there are plenty of things that I don't, one of the things I do like about him is he, for the most part, was pretty America first. We were at a huge net deficit of troops
I don't mean to interrupt
deployed
you.
Overseas.
Sure. But that's the craziest thing too, is being America first now. Just that statement is you're a bigoted person.
Yeah, Nazi.
But no one can tell me why that's bigoted. It's just, hey, listen, like, we want to put the people here, the people who are calling us racist and bigots, we want to put them first.
Right.
Like, you know, and when you say that, it all in my head, I'm just like, dude, you know, just because it comes out of, again, I didn't vote for the guy, but just because it comes out of Trump's mouth,
does not.
It's like he was on CNN. This has nothing to do with anything. We're going to get into Ukraine in about 30 seconds here, but he's on Ukraine on CNN talking about Ukraine, and he's like, I just want the killing to stop. They even had a problem with that.
Of course,
Dude.
because if their leaders tell them to think a certain way or think certain things, they have to do it, and they can't see any way around it.
Which is wild.
And it's like, just ask questions. Like, and so in further episodes, I'm gonna leak something to your viewers, because I'm sure I'll be back on here for further
100%.
episodes about conspiracies. Because I got a bunch of them.
But such a fun topic.
But like, it's not like I firmly believe any of this stuff. I just have questions, and I'm trying to find answers to them.
Well, see, that's another part about being I don't know why, but being more of a libertarian. It's like, you know,
person.
Again, yes, man, listen, you're not a robot. And like Dave Smith, I keep going back to that guy, and I'm really not trying to blow smoke up his bum, but he's always like, how did we get here? He's not reactionary to whatever's happening. He's like, okay, Russia invaded Ukraine. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Let's look at that before we're outraged at people that don't want us to get involved.
Right.
And like, to me, that's the smartest way to go about it, instead of just being
anyone can
let's
get
put on the
that
Ukrainian flag pin, right? Everyone's going to fly a Ukrainian flag. No one knows what's going on. And we're sending billions of dollars over. I mean, we could have built 4 border walls. They said we could give every American or every veteran who's homeless like $2 million.
It is absolutely absurd, the amount of money that we are sending over there.
It's wild.
And do we know what is actually being done with that money?
No,
that's something I was trying to look into, and you can't find anything that's not CNN.
Right. Well, you can find. So I'll send you this. I actually have. Where is it? Authorization. Okay. It's from the Congressional Research Service. It's U.S. security assistance to Ukraine. Right. And so it gives all the money, but it's only the money for security assistance, not for humanitarian aid. So like I just saw there was $61 million put right in their reserve, in their that's right. And so you're not going to see that listed as like, we sent 175 billion total. It'll say we've only sent 60 or 40 or 30. It's like, okay, no. We have sent like 100. The whole big picture. And really, what I want people to understand, especially from this this long-winded Darren intro, is just like, this has been going on since the Berlin Wall fell, and we've gotten ourselves here. Listen, however you feel about Putin, that's for you to disseminate. That's for your opinions, and I don't know the guy, but the reality is, they say these. Just remember when American media says these things like, well, if we don't help Ukraine, he's going to go for Poland. It's like, well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because the U.S. could just, if Texas doesn't listen to Biden, we could just annex Texas. We're not going to do that, but we could. You could say that about everything.
I know.
Right? It's like, well, he could do this. Yeah, but if you look at any of his speeches or read any of his speeches or listen to anything he says, he wants nothing to do with Poland. He told Tucker Carlson, he's like, the only reason I go to Poland is if Poland attacked me.
Right.
It's like, nothing says he wants this, but the U.S. is like, well, if we don't send help, he's going to take Poland. It's like, dude, listen, since the Berlin Wall fell, when Gorbachev was still the guy, that's kind of where I want to start. We, not through any treaty or any legal binding paperwork, let Gorbachev and Russian intelligence know that we weren't going to push, nor will the NATO nations push east towards Russia. And over the last 40 years, we've done that every single step of the way. Right? That's kind of just the summary.
And pushing and pushing.
That's absolutely right. And
that's
and then
a
when
good
we get
place to start, I think, because I was going to say, when we were saying, like, why did it happen, right? Why did this start? We started this.
Yes. Yes. So what I got from a lot of the articles that I read and the books, I'll post the books in the show notes that I did read. But it doesn't lie on the expansionism of Putin,
right?
But it relies on the expansionism of NATO and the U.S. fighting these crazy proxy wars. Really, this whole conflict is because we push thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, not thousands and thousands and thousands, but we'll just say thousands of miles.
A large amount.
A lot.
And past the point that we
delineated. That's gonna be our last part is when we it's called putting the shoe on the other foot. Right? Because do you think we'd let that happen?
No.
Clearly no. Right?
No.
Like it would be a sign of aggression.
We're the one who's agreed to and set the line, essentially, that we weren't going to cross.
Yes.
And what did we do?
Listen, we expanded NATO over 1,000 miles towards the, a border. We've withdrawn unilaterally from the anti-ballistic missile treaty that was placed in effect. We started building ABMs in Ukraine and then running live fire exercises near the border, which is 400 miles from Moscow?
Right.
Look, there's no problem with that, right? There's just no problem with that. No one says, and here's the thing, like I said, it goes back to the fall of the Berlin Wall when they were breaking things apart. We're saying we're not going to do this. And over these years, we've,
done everything we said we weren't going to do.
That's right. And now when Putin's like, hey, we're not okay with these ABMs and you running live fire exercises on our borders.
Right.
The U.S. says, well, trust us. We're not running these live fire exercises to simulate attacking you. We're actually running them to simulate an attack from Syria and Iran, who, if you just listen to in the news, is always 5 years away from a nuclear weapon. Thank you, Netanyahu. I mean, every time that guy says something, Iran
but this is also the same thing that happened years ago with the Middle East. It's like, oh, you think they're really going to abide by this treaty and the, what was it?
The sanctions and what?
The sanctions. They were promising not to build any nuclear warheads or whatever. And what are they doing? And especially, what are they doing when we're sending them hundreds of millions of dollars?
Right.
But it's the same thing. We're doing exactly what we blame them,
Right. It's all as hypocritical as it can possibly get.
I know. And that's something that scares me deeply is the government in the U.S. has gotten to a point where they aren't even trying to hide or pretend about any of this. They just do it in our face and are basically like, well, you're not going to do anything about it. Right. And it's only a matter of time before there's another civil war or revolution. You know?
I mean, the thing is, you can only push. I keep saying this to my lady, and again, everyone here is so tired of hearing me say all this stuff because, of course, we have bigger things like children to raise. Yeah. And I'm like, these kids aren't going to have an earth to live on. And, going scorched earth every night like she doesn't care. But so I completely agree. And the thing is I just think just kind of as a side note, I think this government is the most powerful it has ever been. It's ever growing, and there's no way for us to stop it. So when someone, people like us can get on here and bring awareness, I guess that's what you would call this, is awareness. Yeah. But the reality is there's not much you can do. Everything is so embattled. When they said that this new bill, the $93.5 billion they sent, was passed with bipartisan support, it's like, who?
Yeah, that's something I want to know.
Like, that's something everyone wants. No one. I don't know a single Democrat. I don't know anybody, and I don't know anyone who thinks that this is a good idea with billions and billions. And not only that, we don't have this money that we're sending to them.
We haven't had money in a long time.
Well, the gold standard is the last time we had money when we popped that off.
Yep, of course they want to get rid of that.
Sure. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense because then they'd have to sell bonds. And anyway, that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother
right.
episode, which we can for sure get in at the end of this because it'll totally tie in. But yeah, so the U.S. did everything they could to continue pushing towards, why did I call it USSR? I was about to call it the USSR. We're pushing towards Russia. Right. And then we're right at this border and this is through Trump and Biden. It started with George W. Bush, right? It's everyone. It's not just
it's NATO.
It's NATO,
which is under any president that's been since it was formed.
That's right.
And it needs to be unformed.
For sure. We need to get 100%. But we keep doing all these things that says like we don't want to help the situation. We want to hurt. And we're trying to hurt a country that sits on the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the entire earth. And he keeps giving us, whether you like to hear this or not, these like, okay, strike one, we're okay. Okay, strike two. Okay, now we're on strike 35. So like we're not playing baseball anymore. We're playing some messed up cricket. You know what I mean?
Right. And I do want to mention, I don't think I can't speak for you, but I don't think you or myself, we are not saying that Vladimir Putin's a good guy by any means.
No one is.
We're just saying that no matter whether you're a good or bad guy, you keep poking the bear and, disobeying the own rules that you helped set, something's going to happen.
Listen, they hit Pearl Harbor and we dropped 2 atomic bombs.
Exactly.
Fair assessment. You poke the bear, it gets woken up.
Right.
And everything that the U.S. is doing and these NATO nations are doing says that they want war, and it's disguised as humanitarian aid. I mean, that's what the media says. The media says, well, this is all humanitarian aid that's going to Ukraine, but it's like weapons. Yeah, and the thing, too, is they'll label a lot of these gifts as defensive capabilities. But I guess it's defensive if it's for the Ukrainians, but it's also offensive if it's meant for the Russians.
Right. Absolutely.
And you've got
money is fungible. Like
sure.
Especially like that you can label it as something, I mean, look at our country and probably every country in the world. All the taxes that we pay, you think they're all going like if my favorite line, not to get too off topic here, is when I'm like, I don't think we should pay taxes. There should be no federal income tax, blah blah blah, whatever.
Agree.
They're like, but what about the roads? Who's gonna build and fix the roads? And I'm like, have you driven on the roads recently? If they were in perfect condition, I would maybe think about it might be a little okay, but they're not.
No.
So it's like money's fungible. Of course, those tax dollars and the money that, it is tax dollars that we're sending over there. It's our money. Is not 100% going to what it's supposed to be there for.
The age-old quote, taxes are the price you live in to live in a civilized society. Does it look, in your opinion, that we live in a civilized society?
No, not by a long shot. Don't. It's getting worse every day.
And here's another thing too. Have you ever seen that leaked note called "Niet means Niet"?
No.
I'll have to send it to you. So it's
please do.
William Burns talked to the ambassador of Russia, and it was a leaked message. And let me find the. I just had it pulled up.
There are some other interesting topics.
Of course, all of this is going to get edited out.
About Zelensky.
Yes, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to get into with that because it blows my mind.
I just don't think
on a side note, we'll edit
the
this.
Media says he is. Yeah.
Well, listen, we'll edit this part out so we can just talk. We can talk freely anyway. But this guy ran on principle. I'm going to say this later in a more formal format. But he ran. His campaign was a campaign of peace. This is after a coup to put in a pro-Western regime. He ran on peace to sign the Minsk Accords. We sent 2 folks, I'm not going to name them because I don't want to suicide myself, over there
Yes, by the way, people, Darren has no intention of committing suicide. He enjoys his life.
I love my family.
As do I.
But they sent it over there and ruined the Minsk Accords. I mean, they were weeks away from signing a peace deal with Russia. Anyway, so back to Niet Means Niet. So Niet Means Niet was a leaked letter from the ambassador to Russia, William Burns. He's currently the director of the CIA. If you needed to know who the guy was. And in Niet Means Niet, he wrote, not only does Russia perceive encirclement and efforts to undermine Russia's influence in the region, but it also fears unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences which seriously affect Russia's security interests. So what he's saying in the rest of the note, too, I can send it to you. It's a really good, solid read. But what he's saying is Putin and family, if you will, are like, here's our red line. This is it. If you listen, we have put up with enough of your crap, enough of these lies, and enough of you telling us trust us when we can't trust you. This is the line. If you cross it, I can't guarantee that we won't invade. There won't be some repercussions. And what did we do? We just kept going. And let's see, where's Blinken? I got a great quote from Blinken. I believe it's right here. Okay, here we go. Russia demanded a written guarantee that Ukraine would never become a part of NATO, and that the alliance remove the military assets deployed in the Eastern Europe since it's been there from 1997. The subsequent negotiations failed. Mr. Blinken made clear, and I quote, "There is no change. There will be no change." A month later, Putin launched an invasion of Ukraine.
Yep.
So now we don't have to go into how crazy that is, where everything that Russia's put up with is like, hey, listen, like we're just telling you, you're messing with us too much. You're poking us too much. I really need you to back off and chill. I need you to take these ABMs away from our border, you know?
And that's another thing is like this picture that we have painted Russia as like this horrible, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying this is the picture that's been painted, at least in our media, that they're such a horrible opponent of the world, essentially. Why, if that's true, not saying it's not saying it is, if that is true, why are we poking the bear if they're so dangerous?
And what evidence do you have when your counter argument is if we don't do this, he will then do this? Nothing he does says he will.
He laid it out pretty clearly that if we do this, he's going to do something.
That's right. So like their counter argument is complete counterfeit to compared to what he said he's going to do. So what he said he's going to do is he's going to have to invade or something is going to happen. But what we're saying is if we as America and NATO don't run these live fire and send billions and billions of dollars of humanitarian aid that's being skimmed off and we don't really know where the money is going, then he's going to go for Poland.
Right. Yeah. That's just made up. Well,
why? But that's how politicians work, Jack. That's how they work. They say
they need to justify to the voters.
That's right.
Their ridiculous actions, and most
they
people,
say things like,
unfortunately, unlike you or I,
he is a threat to democracy.
Right.
He is a.
This
is a threat to democracy.
Everything is a threat to democracy nowadays.
Well, can someone, for the love of all that is holy, tell me what is threatening? What type of democracy is it threatening?
Right.
I mean, we're a republic, so anyway.
Right. We're a democratically
yes.
What is it? Constitutional republic with democratically elected officials.
That's correct.
I don't even believe that's the case anymore.
I don't think so either. And as soon as they put money in the mix, it doesn't really matter.
Well, right. And so that brings me to the question.
Money.
And I haven't done any digging into it, and I know how long and hard it's going to be because the way that the internet is censored, if you will.
Yes.
Is with this, with Hunter and his father and their business dealings over in the Ukraine.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that's the whole reason any of this is happening at all, obviously.
Jack, I don't want to
be a part of it.
Well, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, they say it's a chicken. Yeah, well, they say it's a
right.
chicken.
Right.
And none of these people, not Trump, not Obama, not Bush, none of these people are ever going to go to jail for any of this. No. So, Biden's presidency is coming to an end. I just can't imagine a scenario where he's still in office. And then as soon as he gets out of office, then they'll say, whoops, yeah, he did this, and he'll be pardoned or, whatever it is.
Oh, of course.
Like I said, I'll have to send you this security assistance from the Congressional Research Service. But it does say that we are the leading provider of security assistance to Ukraine.
That's insane.
It's wild, dude. It's wild. And we just sent another $60 billion. Now, I don't know the breakdown of that package, so I can't really speak to it. But what I can speak to is the ghastly large amount of money that is. And that's not even that's under half of what we've sent them so far.
Already.
And we've got people here who are just in shambles.
It's sickening.
A lot of that also has to do with what we talked in the last episode about COVID politics, put people under.
Of course.
But
it's all control, man.
Dude, and the thing is,
and the the industrial
Putin is not a good
war.
guy, and we're not really sure what to believe and what not. And the media would say, just like when Tucker Carlson went over there, it's all Russian propaganda. Well, compared to U.S. propaganda, what are we comparing Russia propaganda to? And
our media has been propaganda for decades and decades and decades.
Dude, I can't
Operation
even speak
Mockingbird.
to the last time I watched mainstream media. I'll get these random clips on this is how old I am, but I watch Facebook Reels.
Yeah,
because I just can't.
I don't have any other social media.
I had to get off of TikTok.
I can't do that
for a multitude of reasons. But I'll see these Fox clips or these. I can't remember what is her name. Joy Bear or not Joy? I can't remember what her name is.
Joy Behar from the View.
The View, and then there's another lady on MSNBC. She's an African American.
Joy Reid.
Joy Reid. Boy, does she have some terrible takes. I mean, she's got some really awful takes, and not only does she have awful takes, but everyone on the other side does too. And it seems like the only person that's woken up is Tucker.
They're all the same people.
That's right.
They're all on the same side. Just like the Bushes and the Obamas have been hanging out for years and years and years. They're the same. Man. They're two sides of the same coin. They all want the same thing. They all want more control. They want us in perpetual war because that's a bill that needs to be passed at some point, hopefully sooner than later, is if you are in any form of public office where you make or influence any sort of laws, you cannot invest in any companies.
To take it a step further, you should earn the median income of the state that you represent.
Agreed.
And you will they only work.
You gotta have a job. You gotta have a job. That's how it started.
And right. And your insurance isn't going to be taxpayer funded. You're going to have to figure that out. There's just all these things.
Right. But
how does
what's going on here? I promise you is
1,000%.
These politicians that own all these weapons manufacturers and
they're doing
all
great,
this
man.
stuff. They are making money hand over fist, and it's just being sucked right out of our pockets.
Another great book you got to read, Jack. It's I don't even know if you can consider it a book. I guess it could be a paper. It's 25 pages long. It's called War is a Racket. Mm-hmm. It's by a World War II general.
I've heard of it.
I think
my brother
might
have recommended it to me.
20-minute read. It's so quick, but he's just details his.
It's always been
on
it's
politics
always been
and war and how much of a racket war is, and the reason that it's happening is because people aren't held accountable. Everyone's sending money to Ukraine, they're not being held accountable. The thing too is none of this would have happened if we just listened to I guess we can move forward into the part of this conversation called put the shoe on the other foot. Right. So let's run back a scenario here. What would happen if Russia did this to, it was on the Mexican border.
Right.
What if like Russia and China, we'll call them the Axis, right? We'll call them the Axis because people will understand the axis of evil.
Right, because that's not propaganda.
Not at all, man.
Anyone we're fighting are the bad guys.
How do you think these people would respond if Russia and China carried out equivalent steps in U.S. territory?
Right.
Like, okay, like let me give you an example. Like,
especially if Trump was in office, who and for better or worse, cared, for lack of a better term, about our country.
Right.
And what I should say is wasn't afraid of probably dropping a nuke. Mexico would be a parking lot. If China and Russia were invading us through there, or invading there, whatever, it'd be a parking lot. It would be.
Sure, absolutely.
And you know what? It's not necessarily the wrong thing to do because, like we're saying, if we set these rules and said you can't go past this point in Mexico and set up this sort of weaponry and whatever, move troops here.
Let's go further back, Jack. Let's go further back. Why don't we say Russia said we will not do this. We're not going to go to Mexico. Right. Or let's just use Canada. It's got a bigger border, I think, right? Probably. Yeah. I would assume so. I feel like my 4-year-old knows that and I don't. And she's 3 too. That's not good.
Hey, listen, kids really mess your brain up.
Canada, right? They told us a long time ago. Actually, we'll just use the same year in 1991. They were like, "We will not push into Canada. We're not going to make them our ally." None of this is going to happen. I know this isn't on paperwork, but it's communicated through back channels and to your president, and he understood at the time. And then they keep encroaching. And then they start putting ABMs 70 miles from our border, 70 miles. And those ABMs, they're actually launch tubes that, in all reality right now, can house any type of missile from a Tomahawk that's tipped with nuclear warheads to anything else. So yes, they are a defensive platform, but can be used offensively. So let's put them in Canada, 70 miles away from our border. How do you think the U.S. would respond?
Right.
They'd be like, hey, don't do that. And
so now you just popped up a little interesting question I have in my head. Today, would we do anything? Do you think we would do anything?
For sure.
You think so? I don't know, because there's so many people that are. Well, I mean, if it all goes back to money, so we would.
Jack, you never know because the liberals used to be an anti-war, anti-pharma.
Right. Well, that's
wild.
Well, now that's a whole other conversation.
And now all they want is every Russian to be killed by Ukrainians.
Right, I know.
And every Palestinian to murder every Jew.
That's what I'm saying is we have to think about their feelings.
But I don't think that
they're not the people who make those decisions.
If the federal government, if the federal government can pass a bill to send more than $59 billion to Ukraine, I'm sure they can take us to war in a heartbeat.
I think so. Well, that's what it all comes down to.
All they had to do is say, "Oh, poor Ukraine," for a month. Yeah. And then everyone's like, yeah, fight the power. Let's put on the flag. And
oh, right. Like when this started happening, the restaurant I was working at, hey, we're taking donations for the Ukraine and this, that, and the other. And because 2 of the people who used to work at the restaurant are Ukrainian.
Or Ukrainian. Okay, cool. Yeah.
And the whole time,
and probably at that time, you probably didn't know much about the subject, right? You just knew that there was something going on over there.
I questioned it because so this is a rule of thumb I have.
Okay.
I don't like to jump to conclusions, obviously, because that's not a smart thing to do.
Sure.
But I've been pretty accurate in questioning any time an enormous group led by the media, an enormous group of people all start believing the same thing at the same time.
Sure.
That always smells wrong.
Well, yes. Most of the time that is wrong.
Right, exactly. And so that's what anytime everyone's
so funny,
changing their profile pictures on Facebook.
Right. I didn't. I was just like, I don't honestly, this is gonna sound sad. I was like, I just don't have time. And I had a neighbor who was like Ukrainian and flying the flag, and I'm like, you know what, I don't really get this, and I just don't have time. And then I saw the first bill get passed, and I'm like, wait, billion with a B? What's happening here? And then the second one got passed. I'm like,
at first, I went even further than I don't care. I was just, again, I only researched it a little bit to wonder why everyone's flying this flag.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm going to get a T-shirt that says "Rooting for Putin."
Rooting for Putin, dude. Hey, I mean, listen.
Not that I was. I'm just saying.
No,
just because there's more to the story. There's always another side.
There's always more to the story, and that's the problem with the propaganda. Is they've got people so emboldened and then embattled in this left versus right thing that no one's willing to look at. Like I said when we started this, how did we get here?
Right. Instead of why do people like you or I get lumped into, because historically I had been registered as a Republican forever. That's how I was raised. I still hold in my personal life.
Got a Fox News dad.
I saw Shane live at NJ PAC, front row.
Oh my God.
Comedy show I've ever been to.
He's great, dude.
He's so funny. But so I was raised that way, and put politics and all my worldview aside, I raised my family in a very conservative house. Not conservative like, oh, we only vote Republican, this, that, and the other. It's just, I have Christian values. I try to have God at the forefront of everything, and it's not very liberal in the house.
Right.
But why do we get lumped into? Because I'm not either of those. I don't like Republicans and I don't like Democrats. I think they're both brainwashed.
The party of inclusion.
Right. So it's like, right, exactly. It's just right now it's easier to poke fun at the left. But years ago, it's a lot easier to poke fun at the right.
Why is even Christianity go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, it's okay. But why? And I'm sure you get it because I've been, especially since COVID started and I started questioning that stuff. I've been labeled a bigot, a racist. I want grandmas to die. I am a homophobe, an Islamophobe, this, that, the other. I don't identify with either side. So it's like the people who are libertarians are just plopped into the right side, and it's like here are the two sides. I'm over here.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with them. And the crazy part, you said I was raised in a house with Christian values. I absolutely was too. But the thing is that shouldn't. This is just how I think. It's none of those should make you any party.
Right. It has nothing to do with either of them.
The left is what used to be called the party of inclusion. And it's okay, so shouldn't that include Christians? Shouldn't that include everybody? Shouldn't that be
have to be
it
on
used
the
to be
list,
the
Darren.
questioning? I know. It's wild, dude. And I mean, yeah, you're right. I haven't really gotten involved to the point where I don't. This is so far out, not out of my wheelhouse, but it's something I wanted to do for a long time because I see you post online or I see Scott post online, and I used to I even said this in the first episode is I used to contact Scott, send him a reply and be like, how do I fight this without having to stop my work truck every 5 minutes to yell at my phone? And he's the guy that would be well, type this, or he'd come to my defense because I was just too honestly probably too scared to say anything. And you're right, because that's what happens immediately. And so for something like this, when you see, for me, it was the billions. I'm billions. We've got homeless folks who are okay, I've got 2 kids. I make $800 a week, which is a lot more than most people nowadays, right? That's just how it is. Yeah. My daycare is $300 a kid per week. Yeah. That's $600. Everyone's struggling, and we're sending all this money out there.
And the best part is, because it all comes back to hypocrisy, the way these people talk, is these are the same people that have no problem and support us sending all our money over there. These are the same people that are like, well, Elon Musk shouldn't have all that money. He could pay for all of us.
He's willing to. He's also willing to. He also said that in a tweet. He was if you provide how to do that in an open source financial terminology, I will I'll do it right now. And they're like,
all these Tesla shares. I know.
Maybe it's more than 2 billion or whatever it was.
Right. Well, they can't do math, but that's besides the point. Sure. Even if it were possible, it's not your money, people, first of all.
Right.
But second of all, why are you supporting us sending these people billions of dollars if you hate anyone with money? What, do we have to go protest Ukraine now that we sent them all this money? You know what I mean?
That's a very good question.
I would like to one day, this is a little off topic, but lay out all the rules that these people have, right? And see what the world would look like if everyone lived by those rules.
It'd be very different, for sure.
It would be impossible. You can't, because they contradict themselves every 5 minutes.
That is true.
So
it's wild too, because it's like two polar opposites.
Oh, complete opposites. Like you could probably, if you laid out all these people's beliefs and their rules for the way people should live, within 2 seconds, within 2 sentences, they could go from Democrat to Republican or vice versa.
Or you wouldn't even know the difference.
Right. Well, that's the problem.
Oh, like, wow, hey, look at that. You've got purple hair, but turns out you're actually a libertarian.
Right. Yeah. And then the minute you say that label, they're like, oh, no, I can't be that.
And another thing that I brought up too, this is again off topic and we'll get to your question obviously, but is, it's so difficult. Like my father is very, very right winged, and my uncle, who's like an amazing guy, is like super, super left wing, like posts all this crazy. I mean, I have just had to stop. I've had to remove myself from posting on his page because I just like, dude, it's wild. And then he came up here to visit the kids and go to the lake. And I was like, let me see your phone. And I like grabbed his phone and like looked at his Facebook. And I'm like, well, algorithmically, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because they're just shoving all of this stuff in your face. That's right. And my dad's the same way, where he's just like, he'll say something. My mom has said this before. He'll say something. And my mom is like, did you get that from, and there's some crazy like propagandist right-wing news sites. My dad's like, did you hear that this and this? My mom's like, did you hear that from Newsnet? And he's like, yeah. She's like, that's fake. All that's fake. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But that's just the way it is nowadays. You know, and that's again a little off topic.
And people don't click.
Kind of not.
They don't even click and read. They form their opinions based on the headline because they're not going to stop scrolling.
Right.
Not saying your dad does that, but I'm just saying a lot of people do that. They're like, oh, well, I didn't read the article because like it could have a headline and then say something
the
a
headlines
little bit
are sensational, right? They're sensational,
right, because they just need clicks.
Right, and that's all.
So I do have a question to kind of get back to this Ukraine thing. I do want to know a little bit more about this guy Zelensky. I know he was an actor and all that.
Yes, he was an actor.
I did not know until this morning, right before we started this, that. So it's common knowledge that he wants to basically ban the Russian Orthodox Church, and I do have questions about the fact that he may have been, or Ukraine may have been committing genocide on these people for the past 20 years or so. But
no, they were the problem is they've been their government, like everybody in Ukraine has been pro-Russian. Up until the coup.
Well, right. So that's the weird thing. His children are baptized in the Russian Orthodox Church, the one that he wants banned.
That's interesting.
Isn't that odd?
Not really, considering that like that's just how it's got to work for them to stage a coup or get the right government in. It's like when they trapped Hillary in that. I can't remember what she was talking about. Maybe it was prison reform or something like that. And she was like, oh, so you're asking me because I changed my opinion if I'm actually doing that for politics or if I'm doing that because I believe in it. It's like, yes, we are asking you because of this. And I'm sure that's kind of what's going on with Zelensky because his platform, he ran on peace.
Yeah. And it's
peace with Russia.
That has nothing to do with what he believes.
Listen, look up, if you have a chance, look up the Minsk Accords. You know, like look up "niet" means "niet." That's a great read.
I was watching. It's a translation, obviously, but watching videos of him before he was elected talk about how peaceful he wants. He wants a peace with Russia.
And you're talking about Ukraine as just like this wonderful country. They are, if not definitely the top 3 most corrupt countries, provably, in the world, and we're sending them billions of dollars.
Right.
And
the most valuable currency in the world, hopefully, will stay that way, but I don't think so. We're just sending them loads of it. What are they doing with it?
And then we put the first thing too is we put sanctions on Russia. We're like, we're gonna tank their economy. Where they're not going to be able to use the U.S. dollar. We're going to take them off of SWIFT. And Russia was like, dude, we didn't want to be on the dollar anyway, and neither did half the world.
Well, that's
so now it's devaluing our currency.
So that comes back to another problem that we as a country have had with not just Russia, but all over. Muammar Gaddafi, all over the place, all over the world. Why do these people die? They all have this one thing in common.
Yes,
they want to break away from the U.S. dollar, and they want to have their own, typically gold-backed security.
Sure.
But we don't like that. We want a central world
because that's
government.
What props our currency. That's what props our currency up. Is everyone doing all their transactions in the US dollar. And I think we thought that we're like, oh dude, we're America. So like, that's just the way it is. Like they're going to have to, like when we sanction Russia and they can't use the dollar, it's going to tank the Russian economy. It's like, dude, that backfired on you.
Oh,
not only did it backfire, 100%. It's devaluing our currency to a point where
I
who
wish
knows
I was
what's
paying
happen.
more attention at the time because I would have definitely looked into the ruble.
Yes, Dave's. Well, now they do. Now transactions are in yuan. Now all their transactions are in yuan.
Yeah.
And a great episode if you get a chance is Liberty Lockdown. Had Dave Smith on, and they talked a lot about that because Luke really knows his stuff. He's been talking about the devaluing of currency. That it was such a good episode as the last one if you get a chance. But the Orthodox Church. That's an interesting one. I honestly, I would probably assume. I don't know enough about it.
And he's Jewish. He claims to be Jewish. He doesn't practice. But there's also, I've been seeing a lot of Nazi stuff come up when you scroll far enough and you get past all the fake stuff. Not saying this isn't fake. I'm just, So I know a lot of the military, it could be just individuals or whatever, identify with like the Nazi party, Ukrainian military. You could see them waving flags and all sorts of weird stuff. But then, so this is something I saw interesting because Justin Trudeau's also another real stand-up guy.
He's a Nazi. He had a Nazi he's presentation or something, didn't he?
He's also, well, that's what I'm looking at right now. I didn't.
Can't remember the guy's name.
Zelensky was there, and they were applauding this guy.
Oh, he's like but he's not just like how someone calls you a Nazi for having a different belief.
Yaroslav Hunka. No,
dude is a legitimate Nazi.
Yeah. But
and then he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to bring a Nazi with me to this party. My bad, dude. My bad. I should have looked at what.
No.
Yeah, my bad. I should have maybe asked him if he was a Nazi before I said he was the coolest dude on the earth.
Right. Yeah, but Justin Trudeau's another corrupt.
They
piece
all are, man. Why
is he exempt from blackface?
Any Democratic or liberal official is. Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yo, dude, I can't believe that.
What is that? And then what was it? Youngkin? I don't know if it's Youngkin. I don't know
Youngkin.
who. Yeah, but I don't know who it was. Was it him that was in blackface?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think so. You don't think? I think it was.
Hold on. I'll look it up. Oh, way to go, Darren. Nice sound there. I gotta, you know what? I had to pick my microphone up because my stand doesn't extend. So I'm like,
oh yeah, you gotta get one of these guys.
Dude, listen, you wouldn't even. Okay, I got a really nice desk.
I don't.
Well, listen, I shouldn't. I paid a good bit of money for this desk. This desk does not accommodate mic stands. I can't screw on a mic stand. Everything has to be on top of my desk, so I have no room. And I'm on Amazon, dude, you guys, I see your mic boom right there. It's right in front of your face. Scott had a boom coming off, and I'm I can't fit. I have LEDs behind it to make it sparkle, but that's about all I got.
Well, how thick is your desk?
Dude,
how thick is the tabletop?
No, you don't. There is. Here, I'll take a picture.
Because this just clamps. It has a a C clamp kind of deal that you just tighten onto the
Let me show
edge
you
of the desk.
So this, I'm taking a picture of my iPad. Is what my desk looked like. So I can't put a clamp in there because the clamp doesn't fit in here, and it doesn't fit here because it has to come down lower because like the screw.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a nightmare. And I'm I got to get rid of this desk. And Danielle's like, don't do that. You paid so much for that desk. I'm like, yeah, but I can't put anything on it.
Yeah, I need a bigger one, and I need one with like some sort of perforation or grate on the right side because I don't want to put my computer underneath because I don't want it to get too hot and dusty under there.
Oh, Ralph Northam had a racist yearbook photo showing him in blackface and another in the KKK signature white hood and robes. But dude, that dude was cool, man. Had everything going for him, dude.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
I apologize. I take back Yelkin.
Yeah, you're good.
But yeah, so that's a wild thing. That's just a wild thing. Is all these people? Well, they get exemptions because they are who they are, and like I said, the powers to be will never go to jail. Nothing is ever going to happen to them. They're just in a place where it's too powerful, and that again loops me back around to this funding for Ukraine. It's like no one wants this, but the powers to be do, and that's just the way it's going to be. And then that ties into the election where it's like, no matter what people, that's why Trump to me is interesting. Again, I'll probably vote libertarian and lose like I always do, but he's interesting because the establishment hates him so much. I don't know who they are. I keep using the word they.
Well, it's all of them.
Yeah, every time they do something that used to work, like their old playbook, like, oh, let's get a mugshot of him, dude. They'll hate him then. It's like, actually, he just made $60 million selling mugs with his mugshot on it.
It just grows his fan base.
And you know what's funny, Jack, is I find that most people might not vote for him, but they want him because it's like a middle finger to
so that's
the man,
that's
right? So it's like isn't that wild? So it's like the more they try this guy, the more they try to take his voice away, the more people are like, hey, we don't know how to push back against the powers to be, but this seems like a good start. And we can by doing the only thing that we are allowed to do, which is to vote.
Right. And that's not even working anymore. But so I agree with that harder. because at this point, I mean, everything could always get worse, but we're pretty bad.
Hey,
right now. So it's like, is he really that terrible of an option if he's going to, which he did in his first term, expose all the corruption? Now, whether he's corrupt or not, I have no idea. I'm sure he is, just like everyone else. But at least he's shedding a light on what's going on a little bit, and so it's waking some people up.
And that is a plus that some people are waking up. The problem is I believe that most, if not all, politicians are captured in some fashion or some way, right?
They have to be, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
And a lot of the stuff that's happening right now is because of Trump, and a lot of stuff that's happening right now is because of other policies before him and current policies. COVID policies, that's Trump. Trump put in every single Washington snake into his team.
Yeah, I know.
They all tried to undermine him. I mean, he's a guy who's like he's more of like a non-interventionist, and he had one of the coolest dudes on the planet, but General Mattis.
I know. Mad Dog.
Dude is a absolute G, but like for a guy that doesn't want a war, he's probably the last guy you want next to you.
Right. Of course. And it's
and I hope he doesn't do that again. I don't think he'll ever be allowed near the White House. I mean, I hope that they can find a solution, because I'll tell you what, the people really, some of these folks who I saw. Okay, so one of my next guests he's going to be really exciting, a really smart dude. And he's a Democrat. But I really, this show is all about different opinions and just like getting knowledge, right? And so I saw a post on his Facebook. He put up something. I can't remember what he originally posted, to be fair, but a guy said, well, I won't vote for a criminal insurrectionist, whatever it was. And, in the back of my head, I said, okay, well, it's innocent until proven guilty. And I know you don't like hearing that, but he's not an insurrectionist. We don't know what that word means really at this point in time. And he hasn't been charged. He's been charged, but not found guilty. And So what I said was, okay, so like, you're going to vote for Biden? And unfortunately, like, he belongs in a home. And I'm like, I just can't get behind that. He said, we're not voting for Biden. We're voting against Trump. And I'm like, that's why we're here.
That's what I was just going to say.
The population does not demand more from their politicians, does not have a voice to say, we don't want to send $60 billion over to our country. We can find a better way to spend that here. And that's not racist. That's not homophobic. That's not transphobic. No. That's not bigoted. That's like, hey, my neighbor needs help.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what color my neighbor is.
I wonder if we could get these people on. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I wonder if we could get, I wonder if we could get these people on board with stopping funding Ukraine, because interesting fact about Ukraine, everybody, they're all white.
Yes. Odd.
Stop funding the whites.
Maybe that'll work. I hope it doesn't. I hope people just care about people to care about people, but.
Well, right, I know. I'm just trying to play into their game.
That's wild that, that's like playing their game. That's funny.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I just think, when he said that, it got me so enraged, because I'm like, dude, that's why we're here. And if I just was talking to a friend this morning, I'm originally from Virginia, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, dude, he said, is there any politician that you're like interested in? And I'm not going to go into all of that here, because that's for me to figure out. But I was like, the interesting part about asking that question is, if I hear, there's a couple things. If I hear someone tell me to vote for the lesser of two evils, it makes me want to like lash out irrationally, which is a nice quote from the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
But I can't believe that's even like when Trump and Hillary, people were like, we're voting for Hillary because she's the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, how do you figure? How do you figure anyone's the lesser of what evil? And why are we voting for any type of evil? Right. That's a crazy thing to say. Like, we're not voting for Biden. We're voting against Trump. And like, can you tell me why?
Yeah.
Then
don't vote. If you don't like either candidate, don't vote.
Dude, I know we're off in Ukraine,
there are plenty of other options. Like, hey, there's the Gold Party over here.
There's the Libertarian Party. We got it. Let's go.
Spike Cohen. Hello.
Right. There's other options, and the people like, well, if you vote for them, they won't win. Okay, they don't win, but you're still. If your vote is a statement, if you feel that your vote is a statement, and I have plenty of friends who like, if you don't vote, you don't get to talk about it. I'm like, not true.
No,
because I
can talk about whatever I want.
Yes, I don't like any candidate, and my statement is to not vote because I don't like anybody. No, but to be like, it's only these two options, and they both suck, but we all like.
Right. And so if everyone, and I've said this before, when people make fun of me and say the same thing to me, oh, you're wasting a vote voting Libertarian. If everyone who said that voted Libertarian, they'd have a much better shot.
No kidding. And stop listening to people like, well, it can't happen. It's like, okay, well, like, try.
Why not?
Listen, I am not well versed on how that
voted that way.
Right, like,
it would make a huge difference.
And I don't have enough knowledge to like know right now exactly how all that works. But I'm just don't get that if like every Trump voter wasn't able to vote for Trump because he got taken off the ballot, voted for a Libertarian candidate, how would the Libertarian candidate not
probably win? Honestly,
right.
Because
it's
whether
not about the popular
again,
vote, it's
right again whether you like Trump or Biden or whatever, I mean, that's another thing.
Jack, you got to remember,
raise too many questions.
Sure, and Trump is
the vote
is here. Trump is here.
Right.
People have to remember that. You know what's right next to him? Not next to him. A mile away to the right of him is Nikki Haley. And you know what's crazier? It only goes farther right. So that's what people don't understand. It's like, okay, like Trump is here. Your next is like Pence.
Trump is pretty
and then you're
centrist
docile
for the most part.
That is a
wild. Just right of center.
That is, people cannot get on board. And if you listen to, I've listened to every podcast on every side, and it's like, his son, Junior, Donald Jr. Is that his name? He'll go on these podcasts and like everything he says is like, dude, that's not a Republican. That guy should be an independent. He like hates everybody. He thinks everything sucks and everything's corrupt.
I think part of the reason why Trump ran as a Republican is because
he wouldn't be a Democrat. There's no way they'd let him.
Well, right. So it's weird because all these Democrats. No, you're fine. It's weird because these Democrats used to love him when he voted Democrat years ago.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think he would have had as much success. I don't think he would have won the presidential election if he ran as an independent.
No, because it was Hillary. It was Hillary's time. That's all.
That's the thing.
Oh, you mean independent? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure he would have won. He could have. I mean, I can't. What happened, and what didn't.
Yeah.
But he definitely wouldn't have been the nominee for the Democrats.
No.
And why can't we have multiple of the same party run?
Good question.
Like, what's this primary system? How about a bunch of people throw their hat in the ring, you vote for who you want, and that's it?
Jack, who's running in the presidential election right now? Who's running? Tell me.
Donald Trump.
Give me another name.
I really like.
Give me another name. Give me a name on the left.
Ramaswamy.
Oh, he was. Well, we'll get into him in a minute. Name a Democrat.
No one that I know on the left.
Okay, there's four people. There's four people.
Are there?
Yes.
Are there?
You wouldn't know any of them. Because they don't even hold votes or primaries or debates because they captured the one candidate they want, and no matter what any other candidate says, like the Democrats have no options.
And he's mentally unfit.
They work on a super delegate not even a caucus. I don't even know what that is called. Super delegates, so they can come in and just say RFK was like Bobby was like the most popular Democrat, and he wins all of the votes. He got everything. All the delegates say and Hillary is one of the super delegates. She comes in, she's like, I want Biden. It's like, okay, Biden's the guy. That's just how it works on that side.
I know.
And I'm like, okay, so like you wouldn't
I'm sure
know.
it
And
works similarly
all these
on the right
Democratic
side
candidates, the quotes that I've heard from them are like, people need to start waking up. No one's listening to us. It's like, dude, no one knows you exist.
I know.
Like you don't, Jack. I just was like, hey, what are some? You're like,
I had no idea.
No idea, dude. I don't even know their names. I know they exist because I saw their faces, but outside of that, and I'll tell you what, I will give you a little bit of information here. When my friend asked me who I liked, Vivek was my guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have. If I'm not going to vote Libertarian, he has a couple of bad takes, but who doesn't?
Yeah, but he is fairly.
He's 38, dude. He knows the price of bread.
He's incredibly smart. He's incredibly smart, and he wants, like most libertarians do, a much smaller government. And he said, and this is one thing I didn't like about Trump, is I feel like he reneged on a bunch of his promises, like he was going to shrink the government by this much and he was going to cut these jobs and whatever. And I was like, yes, that's one of the biggest things I want. And
then he hired a bunch of neocons.
Right. And so with Ramaswamy, he's like, in my first term, I'm going to cut federal government jobs by 75%. I'm like, that's going to save.
He's like, and let me tell you,
and Americans will feel that in their pocket. Right. Yeah. Let me tell you how I'm going to do it.
How I'm going to do that. He wasn't saying like, America is America because America is American. He was like, listen, you can't just fire people because then that's a civil rights issue, but that doesn't pertain to mass firing. So if your social security number ends in an odd number, you leave.
Right.
It's like,
you get what you want.
And the way that he handled the media was it was fantastic. When he's like, are you going to apologize for this?
He can debate anyone.
He can debate anyone. And the thing too is when people ask questions, they're not pre-questioned. He just like, here's a mic, ask me anything.
He doesn't like the money we're sending to the Ukraine. That's for sure.
Well, dude, when he was like with Nikki Haley, he's like, go ahead, name a place in Ukraine that you want to station our troops. And she's like, and he's like, see? Like, this is what I'm talking about. These people don't even know what's going on.
Oh, she's so corrupt.
Nikki Haley, this is completely, we have like popped off.
I know. Nikki, it's a podcast.
We said Ukraine, right? We said Ukraine. Nikki Haley has no idea where to put troops in Ukraine. And they're like, hey, why was the Civil War started? She's like, what do you think about it? It's like, dude, the reporter was like, well, I'm not running for president, so why don't you tell me what you think? It's like, dude,
because they don't know. Nobody knows anything anymore.
Remember how Vivek said that? He's like, listen, everyone was like, who do you think they're going to run if Trump doesn't get in? He's like, listen, it's more deeper and more scary than that. He's like,
I'm Democrats really upset that he's not doing well.
Well, he's out. Vivek, he's out.
Yeah.
But they're running Nikki Haley. That's the only people keeping her in the race are Democratic voters and donors. So that's what's going to happen.
So insane.
Remember at first, I'm going to have to cut a bunch of this out. Remember at first.
Okay.
Remember at first, dude? It was like, well, what happens when clearly everyone can say, everybody and in total can say Biden is not fit to be serve another term. Okay, well, who's next? Gavin Newsom? They're like, no, he wouldn't be very popular either. He'd probably lose to Trump for sure. Trump would shred him apart. It's like, okay, well, you got Nikki Haley. She lost in Nevada to no one. She lost by like 50 points to nobody. It just literally said, no candidate listed, 62%, with just a blank image. Like, this lady...
She is so unlikable.
And she's like, now it's a 2-person race. Like, you didn't lose anybody. You're by yourself there.
Well, Vivek called her, I mean, thank God, shed a light for a lot of people who don't know about her.
And Rand Paul was like, never Nikki. And it's like...
Well, why hasn't he... I want him to be president.
Because he's not an established neocon. Just like his father.
It's also because he cares about his life a little bit.
Well, yeah, he doesn't want to go in a convertible into Dallas. You know what I mean? Like, oh, where's the roof here? Shouldn't there be a roof on this car?
Yeah.
That's what would happen.
So anyway, back to Ukraine. Why are we sending? Because it does somewhat have to do with Ukraine. Out of the $94 billion we're giving to the Ukraine, why are we giving $0 to aid our crisis at the border that no one on the left likes to talk about?
Right. Well, if you don't want to bring in 100,000 immigrants every week, you call them what you want, for sure. I agree with what you just said. Then you're a racist, bigoted homophobe. So, if any politician wanted to end what's going on at the border, they could in a day. Because if they can push through, I think it was, like I said, $93.5 billion relief package, 60 of which is going to Ukraine. The rest is Egypt and Israel. But if you can do that, you can sure as shit shut down the border, what's going on down there.
100%.
Which,
they don't want to.
It's interesting. It's like we're so concerned with Russians' border.
Why can't we be concerned with ours?
Why can't we figure out our own? Right. And, I'm just saying, I don't know. Again, I am not in finance, nor do I claim to be, but I think $60 billion could have bought 3 border walls.
I was going to say.
Because remember, like, if you build a border wall, you're a racist. And why in the world would I want to? I even used to argue that before I knew anything about anything. I was like, why would we spend $22 billion on a border wall? It's ridiculous. It's like, well, now we could build 3.
Yeah.
So now that's cool.
Look what's going on in our country.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, but why other countries are allowed to have walls and have borders, strong borders?
Poland.
Poland is one of the. You're good.
No, you go ahead. Keep talking. I'm just
Poland is one of the bastions of hope. A country that does what they want to help their people. That's it. That's all they do. They look out, and in the least, negative way, they just care about. They're self-interested. Yes. You know what I mean? Very nationalistic.
Let's see. That's how
they've got a great thing going on over there. They mind their own business.
The speech I just said. He's like, don't. Oh, here. You know what? I'm gonna share my screen with you real quick.
Yeah.
Or not. Oh, screen. All right, you got it?
Yes.
Okay, you ready? That's what I saw this morning.
President, dear leftists, I'm very happy to take part in this debate about democracy in Europe. So let me give you some example of very major democracy in Poland, over 1,000 years of tradition of Polish nation. Polish nation rejected you, dear leftists, 8 times. 8 times in a row you have lost elections in Poland. So get used to it, because you're going to lose again. That's number one. Let me give you some data about Poland and Polish democracy. The lowest unemployment in European Union is Poland. The highest GDP after COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest debts in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this rubbish about the need of educated immigration, as we heard yesterday. We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all and pay for them. We don't need them. You know why? Because there's a 0 terrorist attacks in Poland. Why? Because there is no illegal migration in Poland. So don't give me this look. Don't give me these arguments about the populism, because this is a fact. This is your data from Eurostat. So we don't need your engineers. We don't need your doctors. Take them. Do not teach us. Do not teach us about democracy, because we know what the democracy is. So learn from Poland. Be like Poland. Thank you very much.
I love it.
Dude, isn't that great?
Awesome. That is great.
Yeah, dude, isn't that great?
0.
Poland. He says it like Poland.
I
Be
love him.
like Poland. And don't give me that face.
Bro.
Don't give me that face.
He's so good. He's right, though.
But I mean, whatever. It's not a racist thing either, man.
No, like we have to. I mean, at the
we
end
have
of
to
the
figure
day,
something out. We have to figure out something. Why we're sending billions of dollars. And where is this support coming from, Jack? Where's all this support coming from?
But we're also setting a terrible precedent, or continuing
for sure
a precedent that we started years ago.
Yes.
Sucking all of the money out of our economy that we're devaluing it on 2 sides here in this transaction, just in this specific thing. There's a million things that devalue our currency, but one, we're shipping it somewhere else from the taxpayer to them.
Right.
Second, we're replacing it by printing more here.
Right.
And that further devalues the dollar.
Sure.
So what we need to do, I've got a great plan here.
Okay.
Stop sending money
What
to
else?
other places.
Oh, okay, other places. Okay.
Stop printing money and stop sending it to other places.
Now
please, for the love of God, care about your own people here, please.
Yes, and they don't just have to be white people. They can be everybody. I'm just joking. It was a joke.
No, but it's true.
You white nationalist, you.
I know. I gotta.
No,
I gotta curb
you know what?
that
Here's
a little
another unpopular opinion. Bring back the gold standard.
Well, that's
because
never
here's
gonna
the
happen
thing:
because
if
they
this
make so much money off of not doing it.
Yeah, well, this wild government who can send $60 billion, which it's probably up to like 200 billion. I got to do. Yeah. I really, it's so hard to find because you got to be an actual mathematician to figure out how much the total is. You imagine they're like, okay, so we need $60 billion. We only have $2 billion worth of gold. We can't print more than $2 billion. Hey, America, do you guys want to buy bonds? And they're like, no. And they're like, no, I guess we can't go to proxy war number 65. Hey, America, do you want to go find weapons of mass destruction? We need to raise the tax rate to whatever percentage, and we need you to buy bonds.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I guess we're not going to go find. Yeah, we can't go find weapons of mass destruction then. How unpopular would all of these things be if they had to either sell you bonds or tax you? Everyone would be like, enough is enough. Niet is niet.
Niet. Right. Exactly. And so, but these problems would eventually stop because like all over the world, and the whole world wouldn't look at us as like we're the enemy, you know? and we would be a lot safer. I think the world would be safer because like I mentioned earlier, when we were the world police, we did make the world safer. We did
America.
for a time.
Yeah.
Great movie. But I think we would make the world safer if we followed in Trump's footsteps and started taking our troops out and stopped starting these wars. Because what's happening is, like you're saying about going back to the gold standard, is we're not sending money to these places for wars that we start.
That's right. That's right. And it's the only reason it's happening is because it's profitable for the small people.
The elite. Yes.
The elite. That's right.
It's
not because, and another great saying is, all these wars, like if we do get involved in some of these conflicts, it's rich people sending poor kids off to, go fight their battles. And that's what, you know what? I have it. I've got it on my trusty iPad. And I think I have the page saved on War is a Racket. Books.
It's really sad. Yeah, we're sending our kids to die.
One way to smash
for no reason.
This is chapter 4, War is a Racket, page 19. The only way to smash the racket, and I have it highlighted, is to conscript capital, industry, and labor before the nation's manhood can be conscripted. 1 month before the government can conscript the young men of this nation, it must conscript capital and industry labor. Let the officers and the directors and the high-powered executive of our armament factories and our steel companies and our munition makers and our ship builders and our airplane builders and manufacturers of all other things that provide profit in wartime, as well as the bankers and speculators, be conscripted to get $30 a month, the same wage as the lads in the trenches get. Let the workers in these plants get the same wages, all workers, all presidents, all executives, all directors, all managers, all bankers, yes, and all generals, and all admirals. Everyone in the nation be restricted to total monthly income to not exceed that paid of a soldier in the trenches.
Amen. It would
Let
change
these
in a
kings
heartbeat.
and tycoons and masters of business and all those workers in the industry and all our senators and governors, mayors pay half of their monthly salary to their families and pay. They used to have to pay war risk insurance. So like in World War I, they only got $10 a month.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I know. It's crazy.
It's wild.
And if we went back to that, it would be over in a minute.
Yeah, dude.
Well, that's what it is. That's exactly what's happening in Ukraine. It is just nothing but money laundering.
That's exactly right. It's unbridled corruption that has started in the 90s and henceforth been subjugated over and over and over again. And the stakes are getting higher and higher because people are just more greedy and more greedy and more greedy. And then politicians like the ones we have in office are able to push through billions of dollars that we don't have to a country that should be for all intents and purpose, a treatable, what do you call it? Just a
disease,
a happy place with Russia. They should be
right.
There should be the Minsk Accord should be signed. Everyone's happy. We shouldn't be pissing them off for no reason. And yet here
100%.
we are. And if you ask any questions, I guess the moral of this story, kids, if anything the government says, you should question it, and not in a way that's like conspiratorial. What I mean is like, okay, so we want to go to Ukraine. How did we get here? Why do we want to go to Ukraine?
Why do we want to go there?
Let's go. Like we shouldn't immediately we learned our listen. If anyone learned their lesson, it's our generation, you and me, Jack, our generation from Iraq when they had, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. They had me all ramped up, ready to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go fight for your country. And then we found out it was just a scam.
Yeah. Right.
And so now we're like, well, hold on, all these other things, we have to question it. And in my first episode, we talked about how I had a manager at one of the places I worked, and it was about the COVID vaccine. And he's like, you're not going to get it? And I'm like, well, just not yet. I didn't say that I wasn't going to get it. I just just not yet. I just have some questions and it's so new. And he's like, well, they're here at this place of work. If you don't get it, you still have to wear a mask. I'm like, okay, so be it. I'll wear a mask, like whatever. I just still have questions. He's like, you don't want to help out your fellow man? I'm like, well, is that what it does? And he's like, well, and he made this whole red hat analogy, which I for another podcast when you're on next, but and I'm like, so if I do take it, it will save somebody? He's like, well, if it could, wouldn't you? And I'm like, Well, unilaterally, if we can save every person on the planet, we should, for sure. I mean, there still are some fucks that deserve to go somewhere, but
absolutely.
But like, are we sure the government is telling us that this? I mean, I know Rachel Maddow is sure telling us that this will work, but like, do we trust Rachel Maddow? Do we trust everyone on the right and left? Like, no. And here we go. A year later, I'm on the phone with them. I'm like, so that didn't really work out, huh? What are you on your like 9th booster?
And you know, these people that are telling us to get these shots are not getting them themselves.
No, well,
they're exempt.
I would, yes. Or like Joe Rogan, right? That's just a fine example. They yellowed his face like on the CNN clip and then called it horse dewormer. This stuff that ivermectin that won a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, all this stuff. And just remember, Jack, these same people never didn't go to Joe Rogan and say, how did you get over this so quick? What were you doing that helped you get over it? And let's think one more step forward. Why did they do that? Because if they found that ivermectin was a suitable treatment for COVID, which there were plenty of them, they couldn't use an emergency use authorization and they couldn't make billions of dollars. Money. That's right. So, kids, in closing, Ukraine is not Ukraine the way you think about it. Do your research.
Right.
Jack will be back for sure.
Yeah, man.
I mean, this is a great conversation. Dude, it's gone almost an hour and a half, dude.
I know. I just like talking about stuff.
That's a long one.
You know, I like talking about the world and what's going on. Because
with people who are like-minded, it's so easy.
Yeah. Right. And that's the cool thing about people like you or like me or whatever. It doesn't matter what our opinions are on any given topic.
Sure.
One of the reasons I really like Joe Rogan's podcast and why it's so successful is because most of his time on that show, on that multi-hour show, is just listening and it's just asking questions, and he just wants to learn more.
Yeah,
because he has his opinions.
He has some pretty wild takes.
He has some really wild takes for sure.